Hello, hello, hello. Friday the 20th, Thanksgiving next week for some of us, or for any of us that I guess so choose to have Thanksgiving. Vineeth, is your hand raised in order to say something or just playing around with the
No,
tools?
it was just by mistake. Sorry.
Oh, okay. But yeah, feel free to interject anytime though. Cool. All right. Well, there's a link to the meeting minutes in the chat. We record our meetings and post them on YouTube for the viewing pleasure of the masses, apparently. Those things get watched. I swear half of them are from my mom. You know, she's just trying to keep up. Cool. All right. I'm waiting for Wei Long to his audio to connect. Actually, Wei Long, is your audio connected? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Well, good. We're just about to kick off the meeting, and well, as if you've met Shriti before, she'll tell you that there's a tradition in the community. First time anybody joins one of the calls, they get to just give a short introduction, to say hi to everybody, and take a moment to introduce yourself, to say where you're dialing in from, how you got here. That way people can get to know you better and make some friends, I guess. So yeah, if you would, say hi to everybody, introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Waylon. I'm from Malaysia. So currently it's 12 a.m. So it's about going to sleep. Then I saw the notification. Then I just click inside.
Yeah. Then you join, and then people want you to actually talk and make sense at 12 a.m. That's
Yeah.
Well, nice. Thanks for coming on. There's a couple of people who joined from, I think, a time zone just earlier than you. Occasionally, we'll have some folks in Australia joining, and they are particularly unintelligible at 1 a.m. in the morning. So, like most of us. Now, actually, I'm gonna see if I can do this. I'm not sure if this is possible, but I'm gonna see if I can embarrass Wei Long a little. And has anybody, or maybe it's just me so far, has anyone used Meshery CTL system completion? If you haven't, you're missing out. And if you haven't, you should do it, and then give your thanks to Wei Long for having completed this command here, which is really nice because if you have relatively fat fingers like mine, then you mistype all the time and you're trying to breeze along. So if you execute this command and then follow the instructions based on your particular type of shell, you'll be able to do fancy things like this, like type S and press tab. Oh, you know what? Actually, hold on, press S, hit tab, and it'll fill in the command. Press tab again, and it'll tell you, here's what else you could do. Maybe it's config. Great. And from here, you finish off the command. So there had been a contributor about a year ago. His name's Mayank Shah. He is currently a community bridge intern, I think, with the Linkerd group. He had raised up this particular request and tried to implement it and gotten blocked. I think at the time there was an issue in the Cobra framework for completion. Either that, or he couldn't quite figure out what Wei Long figured out. So anyway, thank you for that. We've been waiting for like a year to have completion. I am much faster on the command line now.
Okay.
And actually, there's a KubeCon talk a little later. Well, I guess maybe about the time that you're waking up, there's a KubeCon talk. It has a recording of some Meshry CTL command line. And I'd have to go check. It might actually show off your work. So like your work might be on KubeCon stage later today. I'll go look because that's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. Cool. Okay, good. Hopefully we've either entirely scared you off from spending any more time here or you recognize that that your efforts are appreciated. Like it was very helpful. And just to help everyone get to know you a little bit more, Wei, you'd said, I think that you're in Malaysia currently, but potentially looking to move to Singapore?
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Does that put you, help me with my poor geography? Does that keep you in the same time zone, or does that?
In the same time zone, +8.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Cool. All right. Well, hopefully everybody on the call has access to the meeting minutes. So feel free to help take some notes and slap your name into the meeting minutes. We've had a few people join this week. A little bit of a different crowd of folks who've joined this week than some of the other weeks. And that's because KubeCon is going on. And thanks to the works that each of you have been doing, we have the stage 3 times. And so Shriti has actually highlighted the 3 different talks and where the works are being shown off. So of the constituency of people that have joined this week, it's been a little more maybe on the user side, which is really nice. In part because we typically have so many contributors joining and here to learn things and impact the projects. And so anyway, so nice to have some more users. We've gotten some questions from some of those users. So 2 of them, Philip and I don't know that this other gentleman joined. I think he just had an interaction on GitHub, but both of them had an issue with Meshry CTL. So that's a topic for us. If anybody else has topics, now is a good time to list them down below. Good. So some newcomers, other newcomers other people that have come to the community and are now starting internships with Layer5. So one of them is Utkarsh. And I don't know that Utkarsh is on at the moment, but he has just this week come in through Community Bridge. Or if you're not, if you're unaware, this is Community Bridge, or rather there's a Linux Foundation program called Community Bridge that was just renamed this last week, I guess. Yeah, just a week ago. It's now called LFX. I'm not entirely sure what the X stands for, but so the branding is no longer Community Bridge, LFX. There's a few different resources that the Linux Foundation puts forth. We are participating in part through this program to for Intel and the Linux Foundation to sponsor a couple of interns. So there's still an open spot. And I am not signed in at the moment. And somehow Meshry is the first listed, which I think, I shouldn't say somehow. I know that the administrators, I think, did this on purpose. which is nice. It also means that about once a day we get someone applying. So hopefully we'll have another person coming through Community Bridge at some point. By the way, if anyone is either interested or if anyone has people asking them, how to best position for such an internship, the answer is join the community and get engaged. And then if you're engaged and you like it and you're being impactful, then you should be. And if you want and if that person wants an internship, then we should do one. So, all right, that was kind of an update as to Utkarsh. He's coming through, I guess technically not Community Bridge, but LFX. Well, Ogisa goes, I think for short, goes by Austin. So Austin's on the call, also starting an internship this week. And thank goodness that his talents lie within visual design and user experience, some front-end programming as well. We've been in, thank goodness he's here, because without him, we're going to keep using stick figures. So Austin, very nice to have you. I'm glad that you're getting engaged. So Austin is going to help in a few different areas. I mean, one of those is if you've used Meshry, you're familiar with the fact that it's it feels like an infrastructure tool. And I say that to mean that its user interface could use some help. Actually, a fair bit of help. Meshry is more powerful than users generally understand. They generally don't understand that because the flow of the user experience in the Meshry UI is not as needs to be refactored to expose some of those capabilities much more apparently to the user. So so good. So Austin is here as well. Okay. All right, wait, great. We made mention of a few of the talks that are going on this week. Some of you on the call, three of you participated in these talks. So by the way, the call for papers for next KubeCon is already open. So if you have a hankering to go up to go on stage, I encourage you to submit. If you need help with that, for my part, I'm happy to help. If you want to co-present, I'm happy to do that as well. Fair warning, if we do co-present, I promise it will be a lot of work. All right, it always is. We're always going to push the edge a little bit. So, okay. So for today, we didn't have a lot of topics lined up to dig into. I think that this first one is worth spending a little bit of time on. Anybody who's running Mac OS? Well, what's that? Okay, everyone spoke up all at once, so I couldn't hear. Anyway, some of you are probably running Mac OS. Some of you maybe have upgraded to Big Sur. I did, and I'm enjoying some new features, but I'm also not enjoying some kerfluffle around Homebrew. And it's sort of between, I think, Homebrew and a new version of Xcode, which I think I now have resolved on my system, which really wasn't much of a challenge to resolve. I just needed to understand that that's what needed to be done. Anyway, and that was to upgrade to the latest Xcode. Having not done that, I was having a real difficulty using Meshry CTL. So when I would do a brew install Meshry CTL, or rather, in my case, I was trying to do a brew upgrade. And and I was getting errors back, talking about incompatibility with the OS that I was running. What made this more confusing for me is that recently we've been having some challenges with builds completing successfully. And it just started right around the same time that I had upgraded to Big Sur. And so it was just a coincidence, I'm sure. So Kush has been looking into some of these issues. I think this is some of his work trying to fix the issues. But for those of you who don't know, we use GitHub Actions throughout most of the projects, or not most, throughout all the projects. This is a little curious. This makes me think that maybe we're referencing the wrong secrets, because every repository has secrets, and those just need to be referenced in the workflow. Not sure. Anyway, there's been a couple of things that have been plaguing Mesh3CTL. So one of the things that's a bit of an issue for Mesh3CTL is that we use Go Releaser as part of the build process to compile Mesh3CTL to a few different target operating systems, target architectures, and that's convenient to use Go Releaser. It's convenient for us as a project to just use Go Releaser to go make these various builds and then have them released here. Go Releaser will also facilitate, I believe it facilitates 2 other types of packages. For sure, it's creating and releasing this homebrew tap. This tap is what is used in part for homebrew as a tool to be able to install Mesh3CTL. Now, here's the thing with, and this is actually what one of the users today stumbled into. I don't think our instructions were necessarily clear that as a user, you first need to add this repository as a tap to your brew configuration. After you've done that, then you can install Mesh3CTL. Otherwise, brew doesn't really know where Mesh3CTL is and where to pick it up from. And this is an artifact of using Go Releaser. So I'll try to make this a little more evident what's going on here. Is that if you've used Brew or Yum or apt-get or Scoop or Chocolatey or I don't know, there's a bunch of package managers. You occasionally have to configure your package manager to pull from different repositories, right? So you can have access to different packages. Well, for Mesh3CTL, since we're publishing with Go Releaser actually in their documentation, it has this note right here, which is basically saying that Go Releaser doesn't generate a core formula, a valid core formula for Homebrew. And because of that, our users first need to run this command to configure their local brew tool to point to this Layer5 project, to point to this repo. And this repo calls out formulas for Mesh3CTL and where to go get Mesh3CTL. And the latest release is 4.23, and it points over to where to go get it. So we have an open request, actually. So Wei Lun, maybe this is, I don't know if this is an area of interest for you or not, but, or for anyone on the call, is it would be a lot better, a lot nicer if we weren't using we weren't using Go Releaser for publishing Mesh3CTL, but instead we're able to allow users to just do one command. So something for people to think about. I'll put a link to that issue in the meeting minutes. Here. Okay. Anybody have any comment on that? Did anyone struggle with that the first time that they installed Meshry CTL? I know a number of you end up just using the bash script to install Meshry CTL, not a package manager like Brew, so you wouldn't have bumped into it. I know there's a number of you that just compile Meshry CTL itself. You don't use a package manager, or you don't use the released binary. Okay. Other topics. This is probably just more of an announcement, I suppose. There are, myself, and then I've done this with a few different people in the community, will occasionally give service mesh workshops through O'Reilly. And if you're an O'Reilly subscriber, you can, O'Reilly Live Online Training. Linkerd. We're giving two different workshops, or three different workshops. One is on an introduction to Linkerd. Another one is an introduction to Istio, and another one is an advanced Istio. And so here's the thing, here's the secret. I suspect maybe most of you aren't subscribers to O'Reilly. The secret is the content, those labs that we walk people through, they're actually open sourced and available to you. So if you go to layer5io/workshops, if you kind of want to walk through Linkerd or Istio, these links here will take you to the GitHub repos where these labs are, and you can geek out on these service meshes. We use Meshry as an educational tool in these workshops. So if you take one, you will also become inherently a little more familiar with Meshry. So I'll put a link there. All right. So we might end today's call early, depends on things to talk about. So I'm just looking over the list of people who are on the call. We might want to skip or push Get Nighthawk to the bottom. But anyone so it's a new project that's forming. It's called Get Nighthawk. And I'll talk about it later, but it's open to any of you that want to participate. Kind of a good time to get in on a new project. It's fairly small. There's going to be a couple of technical hurdles. For the first time, we will engage with a couple of data scientists, because there's a couple of data science things that we want to do in that project. And not for the first time, we will, you know what, I guess I'm just talking about Get Nighthawk now. So so in this project, it's, if you're familiar with Envoy as a proxy, or even if you're not, if you're familiar with Nginx or HA proxy or Envoy or others, Envoy is very popularly used as the data plane component in service meshes. And Envoy has a load generator. It's called Nighthawk. The Nighthawk project was created as a sub-project of Envoy. Just like Fortio was created as a sub-project of Istio. The Nighthawk project is gaining in popularity. It's more capable than Fortio. it's one that we would like to invest more and more into. For a couple different reasons we want to invest into it. So one of those reasons is that soon Nighthawk, you'll be able to take and deploy multiple instances of Nighthawk and tell those instances to collaborate amongst themselves to generate load in a distributed way, and then to send back their results from those tests to a central location, do statistical analysis on those results. And given that capability, I expect that we're able to ask ourselves and ask the industry a few new questions that maybe we haven't either thought of or been able to answer very easily before. And so we're engaged. It isn't new that we would engage with universities. We have in the past on service mesh performance. We're engaging with a new to us university for this project, and it's NITK. It's the National Institute of Technology. Kangapur, something. Anyway, with a professor there who's done lots of research in this area. I think he wants to bring in a few of his students to kind of engage and learn some things, help on some things. So the project itself that we're looking to do, it's fairly, to give you a quick essence of what the Get Nighthawk project is. There's a few things that we're going to do within there that are sprawling, meaning there's some data science stuff, there's some Meshmark stuff, but the core of what Get Nighthawk itself will be, it's fairly similar to this. So there's Envoy as a proxy that you can download and run in your data planes. And it didn't really have a lot of, didn't have a lot of distributions. It wasn't packaged in very many ways. So a separate project spun up, separate but highly related project spun up to help facilitate people getting Envoy. And so they created a CLI called Get Envoy, and then they do a bunch of builds of Envoy every night or every time that there's a release. It's a fairly small project. Much of the value here is between these two things. So as we look at Get Nighthawk, which would be like, we would be creating a number of packages for different target platforms for Nighthawk, the load generator, Envoy's load generator. We'll be working on that. And at the same time, we'll provide some CLI support for retrieving those. We're not going to go off and create a new CLI. Rather, we're going to build on top of what's in, not build on top of, we're just going to extend Mesh3CTL to facilitate some of this. Really, that was already in scope for Mesh3CTL. If you use Mesh3CTL to deploy a service, to invoke a performance test, which I'll show you now. By the way, if anyone has any comments or questions as we go, just interrupt. But today, and again, thanks to Weilan, you can do a Mesh3CTL perf, and this subcommand, I'll set Docker to start. So Mesh3CTL is actually starting Docker on my system. I think this will say that it failed in a moment, but actually I can see Docker is starting on my system now. It just takes a little while longer, I think, than this command is willing to wait. So we don't have the best logic in this command about determining whether or not Docker is ready. So I think it failed, saying that Docker has failed to start, but that's not true. It's still starting. It's just taking too long. So, okay, so Docker has started now. So if I run this command again, what it will tell us is, okay, great. If you want to use Mesh3CTL to invoke a performance test, here's the flags that you can provide, like what load generator did you want to use, what endpoint did you want to hit, for how long did you want to do it, how hard did you want to hammer on it, that kind of a thing. You can also just, you don't have to type out all these parameters on the command line. You can just supply a file, a configuration file that has those parameters in YAML. And actually that YAML file, that's the service mesh performance format, the SMP format. So what I was trying to say is that Mesh3CTL already will support indirectly retrieving instances of Nighthawk and helping manage Nighthawk. So that's what the Get Nighthawk project is about. So we need to create a new Jekyll-based site. Doesn't have to be but a handful of pages. Probably have a blog post or two on it or what have you, but it's fairly straightforward. There's a few community members who've stepped forward to jump on that. There's two others that have stepped forward to help with the packaging, like the building of Nighthawk and the packaging of it. That'll be a little bit difficult. I expect more help is needed. We're engaged. This is an engineer from Google, and there's another one engaged from Red Hat, which is good that we're getting that type of engagement from the Nighthawk maintainers. So these are Nighthawk maintainers, and I'm happy about the project. So that was Get Nighthawk. Something else to talk about, and if it ends up being a monologue, then we should definitely end today's call early. But I thought I saw Nikita on the call. And I know Abhishek is here. There's some busy work around SMI conformance. Is Nikita still on? No. Nope, she's not. I think we bored her to death with the other stuff. Either that, or I know she's attending KubeCon, so she's been focused there. So Abhishek, let me ask you, I don't know if talking about SMI conformance is, well, maybe I guess in context of the work being done on the Mesh3 adapters and the new adapter library, and then the implementation of the use of that adapter library and the rework of an adapter like Kuma and Console. Are we at a point kind of where are we at in that process?
Yeah, so the framework is more or less ready, as in the whole integration flow has been done. It's just that a couple of commands are being tested out, like installation of the service mesh and sample applications, or running conformance test on all the commands that we have. That those are being tested out currently. And when specifically, if you look at Kuma, we've been able to install Kuma, as an installation of Kuma is, and running conformance test. Both of these are are in a running state right now. It's just that I'm left with testing out the sample applications, and that's it.
Okay, to repeat that back, both the Mesh3 adapter for Kuma and for Console are
not console. I think Mikael will be working on console this weekend, and
yeah.
also
Yes, well, console runs on the on Mesh3 adapter library, just not the current version. So the latest release of console already uses the Mesh3 adapter library. Of the latest release of the console adapter already uses the Mesh3 adapter library. So I plan to just update to the latest version this weekend. And I actually started looking at using the SMI conformance test also in the console adapter. And we started discussion, I think, because console adapter would need specific changes to the deployment of the Learn Layer 5 application. So it's something we should discuss, how we should handle this, or whether we should wait for console 110, where this probably wouldn't be necessary anymore.
Well, we can discuss that. We don't have to wait for the new version, and we can discuss that.
Yeah.
Plan of action for the current ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, there's obviously there's some effort involved to override the default deployment descriptor, and there's several options for that. So, you know, whatever we do, it should be sort of like the right option we start working on.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we sort of need a right discussion about this also. So from the say application architecture point of view, but also from the possibly future needs.
Right. So I do have a plan in my head. Then we can probably catch up.
Yeah, let's do that.
Have a discussion.
Unfortunately, I telepathy is not my forte. So
we actually now is we don't have any other topics. I'd love to see it advanced. Can we go through what that looks like now?
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of context. Maybe it's good that I try to explain how I think it works with Kotlin.
Okay.
And how so we're using a fork of Kotlin, right? To where Kotlin, which is the I can't remember what it stands for, but it's a testing framework to test Kubernetes operators. And it basically works by providing a number of YAML files, and then Kotlin deploys these YAML files and runs some tests which are also specified as custom resource definitions on the deployments. For instance, you can assert that all your resources have been deployed with a given set of properties, if I understand this correctly. And then you just interrupt me if I sort of say something which is not correct, or if it takes too long time or something. And then we have, or a layer 5 measure has extended Kotlin, for instance, by making it possible to run custom tests that are not based on these manifests as files in a test harness. So you define a dummy file in this sequence of manifests, and then the Kotlin harness, or the Kotlin test execution framework, has been configured to run a custom test implemented as Go code when this manifest file shows up in the sequence of test steps in this framework. And this is the mechanism that is used to run these conformance tests. The deployment of the sample application or the deployment descriptor of the sample application is one of these files, of these manifest files that Kotlin runs through. Now, in the case of console, we need to add annotations to pod specifications that make console to inject the agent and the sidecar and set up this service as a service controlled by console service mesh. So I thought possibilities I see is that one is that we try to swap out this file before the tests start running. Another one would be that we extend this, we use the extension which makes it possible to run custom tests, not to run tests, but to deploy the application. Or we could have a mechanism by which we use a merge engine or merging with annotations or with labels for specific resources. That would be another possibility. Or that we would, yeah, I think these three possibilities I saw for myself to be able to implement that, and that then the adapter would, like the console adapter, would send these either the specific deployment into the function or the service call to the when it invokes the SMI test run, which will, if I understand it correctly, mean that we actually have to change the API, because the conformance test tool is a service that runs in the cluster that then gets a request for a test from the adapter.
So in that case, like changing, taking advantage of the fact that we've forked Cuddle and making some changes to its API to be able to receive the additional information that it would need to modify the deployment YAML.
Yes, something like this. Isn't the SMI conformance tool deployed as a service into the cluster?
I think so.
And then the adapter actually calls the API of our service SMI conformance testing tool, which is running as a service in the adapter. And that API we need to change if we want to send in additional information.
Yeah, yes, totally.
Yeah. And then, and this is when you run this and you see, just correct me if I'm wrong, you automatically a namespace called measure is created. And that's where the SMI, is that true?
Yeah, that's because it's mentioned in the Helm chart, but that can be changed.
Okay, good. And then the Cuttle tool is actually creating namespaces for each of the test suits or whatever they're called.
Correct.
To be run, yes, and then deletes everything after the run.
Yes.
Yeah, so yes. So whatever we do, it takes some effort, right? So that's why I think we need to discuss this. What's the best way? Because as soon as we start changing API, then that has some consequences, extra testing and breaking. Yeah.
If two things. One, if we waited, or if we focused on other work in the meantime while console, and waited for console 110 to come out, is that our only issue? Or is that the only reason to potentially take on this work?
That's also something I wondered about. Can we, because the assumption is that all service meshes can handle exactly the same application deployment manifest, and so is that something we expect to be true, or more more true in the future?
Right.
Or is it like in Istio, where you have like, you have to define virtual services, which are part of Istio, and maybe that will be a part of the thing we have to set up, and that's very Istio specific. And then we would need this flexibility that we can actually send in service mesh specific deployment manifest.
So the thing is like we have future use cases for examining, for facilitating service onboarding onto a mesh, because it'll be with high frequency, or it'll be a use case that many people have when they go to use a service mesh. They have existing services, they want to migrate them onto the mesh. The manifests that they use today, aren't going to contain all of the annotations or containers, pod specs that are necessary for it to, those services. So that onboarding use case is an area of investment for us, or like noting that that's a future thing. But like, so that's in some respects, that's a +1 to cracking open the architecture, potentially investing here. There's another +1 to potentially investing here, and that is that it's slightly odd that Meshry itself and the adapters, you guys, people here put a lot of time into making sure that Meshry through the adapters is able to provision and manage any given service mesh. And yet for this set of SMI conformance tests, we're using a different mechanism to deploy the meshes and to apply the, and at a high level like that seems, not good. That seems not ideal. Like ideally you would use the same mechanism today. That's part of why we're using Meshry. Is like it can do lifecycle management of a mesh. So let's use that, and then let's add on the ability to have assertions defined and apply those. So that's that's another +1 to potentially invest. Like if we're going to take on work, like it's a fair question to ask, to question whether or not continued use of Kudo is the right thing, or maybe just part of Kudo. Like the value, what we were trying to do initially with this project, and I think, or I know we're vested now, like we're committed now. Previously, when we first started, it was like, hey, hopefully there's a test harness out there that we can grab that's Kubernetes native, and we can just let people, other SMI maintainers, other people that are participating, just define an assertion in a YAML, which is easy enough for people to do and easy enough for people to grok. Like, oh, what are the tests and how many tests do you have? Great, go see these YAML files. They're there. You can read them in more or less plain English. That was a lot of the value that Kudo was going to bring, or Kudo was going to bring. But it has its own assumptions as its own project. And so you end up, hence we ended up forking to overcome some things. And now that project has advanced since we've forked. I don't know what the changes are, or but I feel in some respects, we're kind of at this crossroads of, we want the convenience of being able to define an assertion, verify the assertion, return the results. And the thing is like, well, we actually kind of have that already in another area. and I may need to, let me start Meshry really quick. Has anyone run the configuration validations for the Istio adapter? So I'll show you now. Meshry is starting. So so on my system, I have Istio console, Open Service Mesh, and NSM installed. Apparently, jeez. And for Istio, this is the only adapter currently that supports this, but this is very much so something desired, and that is to let people operate their service mesh with confidence, to empower them with some best practices. And so one of the validation operations, one of the operations that sort of falls into that category, is one of those is running this set of tests that we're talking about, SMI conforming. Another one is it doesn't use Kudo, but is to go take a look at your running configuration, the configuration of Istio that's running now, and against a set of like 10 or so tests, examine your configuration, basically do in some respects what we're doing with Cuddle, which is go look at your environment. Given this rule, a rule that says, hey, you should have prefixes in your, whatever this rule is, your config should look like this. Now, the library that we're using to perform this is also not our own, rather borrowed from another project. That project was very happy that we had done it at the time. And a year later, I think that they consider we're somewhat competitive, and so we're still in good relationships. But we just, anyway, they're not advancing that project anymore anyway. But this capability is something that we desire for every adapter to have. Every adapter should be able to take a look at the environment, check to see if you're doing something well or not. And so this particular function is also this particular functional area is also in need of rewrite. So yeah, it makes me wonder if, so here's what I would say. From my perspective is this coming Wednesday. And so Michael, if you're able to make it, wonderful. The next SMI community meeting is being held on Wednesday, the 25th. It's on our Layer 5 community calendar. It's normally just half an hour. We're extending it to an hour. We're going to invite all the maintainers of the various service mesh projects that claim to be compatible with SMI. We're inviting them over to kind of walk them through the program, sort of walk them through SMI conformance. And here's what our ask is of them. And our ask there'll be a couple of asks. One is, anyway, let me not walk through all that. Let me just say that I think the answer here is something like, assuming we can hobble along with Kudo as it is today, that we really want to get to the other side with at least one of these service meshes saying, here, Meshry is the tool that validates this mesh. And if others are successful as well, great. And we can claim success, and the popularity of the project will grow, and the reliance on the project will grow. Support for it will grow. And it would be after that that we would, and we can start looking at that now, but like understanding that we would probably leave console by the wayside and not invest in rework against something that I think what we're saying, or what I'm saying anyway, is that I'm not sure that we should keep Kudo long-term. Moreover, that we should keep that other component that we're using for configuration validation. They're both kind of doing the same thing. One is validating SMI, the other one is validating your config. My sense is, or that we've had a lot of pain with Kudo. We're experiencing some pain now. The other component needs rewritten. We probably need a rewrite in this area. It would be nice if we were able to land some of the momentum that we've had here with one or two of the projects, acknowledging that it looks like right now, at least without some additional work, that we might be our approach might be incompatible with console, but that we would fix that in a different way. Also, I'm not convinced that there isn't an easier approach to what we're talking about. I'm not sure about fixing it with console. Yeah.
I'm not sure there is an easy approach, because you have to, because Kotlin is deploying the application, and you have to do something. You have to hook into.
One way. Yeah, very good. Well, I mean, one silly way would be, this just occurred to me now, is that, well, we could have manifests. We know what the test service is. We have manifests for those. We can create console specific manifests pre-configured, and then make an exception for console. And say,
Yes, exactly. And in the comment in this document, if you scroll down a little bit, I think on the right-hand side, I sort of outlined, and this is sort of like the question and my sort of suggestion, what I talked about now, and that whatever we do, if we start from the inside out, so that if we start defining a service mesh specific deployment file in the code that is running Kotlin, and then just hook into this switch statement that you mentioned. That would also be a good way to start. But even so, then we would have to decide where to trying to swap out the installation, the file that is called install now that deploys the application, or how we want to do that. And what's sort of like, how do we achieve that we are able to test console with the least amount of work and risk?
Fair enough. It seems like we'd want to, for advance, actually something that you've already suggested, like sort of identify in advance if a few switch statements will get us there, or and also understand, hey, what's the release timeframe for 1.10, and then actually, like, at some point start talking about what it means to get rid of Cuddle and to get rid of that other tool as well.
I could have a look at just whether it's possible. I'm sure it's possible, but how to do it and how much work it will be to just swap out this file in a switch statement. And
that sounds good.
If Abhishek's, we can catch up with Abhishek. If you think it's easily doable, then that will be sort of like, I think, a good pragmatic solution to be able to run this soon for console.
Stopgap.
Yeah, we can probably discuss that once.
So just a quick thumbs up or thumbs down, Abhishek. Like, are you generally positive on the idea or not?
It's a thumbs up.
Okay. With some additional. Okay, I mean, good. I just wanted to. I want to make sure we get something out of the time spent. So. Cool. Good. All right. Thumbs up. We're just a few minutes over. Some of us have another call, and so thanks for this, Michael. I'm glad that we made progress, because hopefully next week's call on Wednesday will be fruitful, I hope.
Thank you. It was a good discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Talk to you guys next week. See everybody later.
See you. Have a nice weekend.
See you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.